Since Christmas Eve is not usually an official federal holiday, most people have to work. However, it is a partial day off or a full day off in some states. Many workplaces hold Christmas parties or celebrations, so there is a celebratory air to the day. People who work in the retail or catering sectors often have to work very hard to meet consumer demands on December 24th. Christmas Eve is the evening or entire day before Christmas, the festival commemorating the birth of Jesus. Christmas Day is observed around the world, and Christmas Eve is widely observed as a full or partial holiday in anticipation of Christmas Day. Together, both days are considered one of the most culturally significant celebrations in Christendom and Western society. In the early afternoon of Christmas Eve in 1993, Shannon Charles Thomas shot and killed 10-year-old Maria Rios and her 11-year-old brother, Victor Rios, in the upstairs portion of their Baytown home. Thomas and an accomplice, Keith Clay, had just killed the children's father, Roberto Rios, in the downstairs area of the home. The father was severely bitten, shot 3 times and stabbed in the neck with a pair of shears. The children were shot once in the head through a pillow as they lay side by side on the floor. The father's brother, mother and other family members discovered the victims about 7 p.m. that day. The motive for the killings was robbery and the elimination of witnesses. The disabled father sold small amounts of marijuana from his home. Thomas bought marijuana from the father at the home on several occasions before the killings. Thomas and Clay's intention on Christmas Eve was to rob 32-year-old Roberto Rios, a small-time marijuana and cocaine dealer, of his drugs and money. In the early afternoon, Rios was duct-taped to a chair, severely bitten, tortured with a pair of shears, shot twice in the head, and stabbed in the neck with a steak knife. Thomas then went upstairs to a bedroom where Rios's 2 children were, 10-year-old Maria Rios and her 11-year-old brother, Victor Rios. He shot them both point-blank in the head through a pillow as they lay on the floor. It appears that the motive for the killings of the children was the elimination of witnesses. A friend of the victims testified he briefly visited the victim's home at around noon on Christmas Eve to leave some Christmas gifts for the children. The children went upstairs after receiving their gifts. The friend saw a white car with tinted windows parked in front of the home. Keith Clay owned a white Cadillac with tinted windows which he reported stolen the day after the murders. A postal worker delivering mail to the victim's home at around noon on Christmas Eve also noticed a beige-looking, maybe white, car parked in front of the victim's home. As he delivered the mail, he saw 2 men walking down the victim's driveway. They got into the car parked in front of the victim's home and left. The postal worker contacted the police the day after the murders and reported what he saw. The postal worker could not remember the license plate number of the car parked in front of the victim's home. At trial, the postal worker identified Thomas as one of the men he saw walking down the driveway of the victim's home. The case remained unsolved for over a year. Thomas and Clay did not become suspects in the murders until after the police arrested one of Thomas' friends on a narcotics violation and the friend provided the police with information implicating Thomas and Clay in the murders. Thomas was arrested soon thereafter. At trial, Thomas' friend testified that Thomas told him shortly after the murders that he shot and stabbed the father and shot the children. Another one of Thomas' friends, who at the time of trial was in prison for murder, testified that Thomas and Clay came to his apartment in Houston on the afternoon of the murders. Harris testified they told or intimated to him that they had killed the father and the 2 children. Thomas had previous criminal convictions to his name. He was on probation for delivery of a controlled substance and had served time in Harris County, Texas boot camp for assault. Thomas was convicted of capital murder for the deaths of 2 children. On November 8, 1996, the jury decided punishment, and the trial court sentenced Thomas to death. After being convicted of the 2 children's murders, Thomas was sentenced to death by a jury on November 8, 1996. The conviction and sentence were then affirmed by the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals after an automatic appeal required in all death penalty cases in Texas. An appeal for writ of habeas corpus was denied on November 24, 1998, by the Court of Criminal Appeals. Appeals to a U.S. District Court were also denied, and an application for a certificate of appealability was denied in the United States Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit on October 11, 2004. Thomas did not file a clemency petition with the Texas Board of Pardons and Paroles. Clay was executed on March 20, 2003, for the murder of Malathetil Tomval Ruiz. Thomas was executed on November 16, 2005. No member of the Rios family witnessed the execution. Thomas requested that his sister and a friend witness for him. Thomas requested no last meal. In a final statement, Shannon Charles Thomas repeatedly expressed love for his family. "I want you to be strong and get through this time," Thomas said with his sister standing a few feet from him, looking through a window. "Do not fall back. Keep going forward. Don't let this hinder you. Let everybody know I love them." Thomas mentioned several people by their first names, telling his sister to tell them he loved them and to stay strong. "This is kind of hard to put words together. I am nervous and it is hard to put my thoughts together. Sometimes you don't know what to say. I hope these words give you comfort. Let everybody know I love them and love is unconditional as Mama always told us. I may be gone in flesh, but I am always with you in spirit." He was pronounced dead at 6:52 p.m., 5 minutes after the lethal drugs began to flow. Thomas, 34, was the 19th inmate executed that year and the second in as many nights in the nation's busiest capital punishment state. Thank you for watching Death Row.